You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season number 2. It's episode number 69. Cubs salvage 1 against the Snakes. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook, or email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Well, Crawly, it's Sunday evening, and the Cubs managed not to get swept by the Snakes, as you've named them, salvaging the game Sunday afternoon, but a very busy weekend for you and for all great Cub fans down at Wrigley Field.
Yeah. It was a wild one. We'll just put it at that. But it was from the actual game standpoint. You had to be really frustrated only taking 1 out of 4 here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought 2 was legit. I thought 2 and 2 would be great. 3 and 4 would be a little bit much. And there's a couple of these games, Crawly, on Friday and on Saturday that were just absolutely crazy. We're going to have to take everybody through that. But let's start with probably the biggest stinker of the group, and that was game number 1. That's back on Thursday. Javier Assad on the mound.
Right. Remember, we thought this was the one that they were going to take. Assad had a 1.62 ERA in his last 10 outings. He wasn't as sharp. He pitched decently, though. I mean, for a 4-5 starter, he was fine. Tommy Pham homered in the first to put the D-backs up 1-0. And then he also gave up a 2-run homer in the third to Ketel Marte to make it 3-0. He went 5.1 innings. He gave up 3 runs on 7 hits, 2 homers, 1 walk, but no strikeouts, which had me a little bit nervous, Dustin.
Yeah, not exactly a typical Assad outing. Worked hard. Again, my thing is, what's with these homers? The starting pitching giving up a lot of home run balls lately.
And but he kept, like I said, for a 4th or 5th starter, he kept you in it. You're down 3-1 in the 6th. And he called on Keegan Thompson with a runner on 2nd and 1 out. He walked the first batter he faced to get but got a double play to get out of the inning. He pitched a nice 1-2-3 inning in the 7th. But then Dustin, I was surprised. He comes out in the 8th inning, and I thought that was pushing it.
Well, I mean, at that point, I don't know that they felt they were going to be able to come back. But, yeah, I mean, I guess they had to see what this guy can do, right? Is he ready for the big time, or is he destined to be back down in Iowa sooner or later?
Well, that answer came quickly, but you're only down 2 runs, right? And he
down 2.
He gave you an inning and and 2/3, and so no big deal. But then, like I said, he comes out in the 8th. He walks Marte, and then Tommy Pham hits his 2nd home run of the game to make it 5-1. Ketel Marte had an RBI single in the 9th to make it 6-1, but it was Marte and Pham who just killed the Cubs pitching. Marte was 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs, and Pham was 2 for 5 with 2 home runs and 3 RBIs. So between those 2 guys, those are your 6 runs.
Those are the 6 runs. And I thought that if anybody was going to be tired going into this game, I thought it would be the D-backs after having flown from San Diego, I believe.
Right, and then they countered with Ryan Nelson, a rookie who's pitched okay this season, but he was sent back to the minors on August 13th and has been AAA for a month. But the offense really didn't do anything. He walked 2 batters in the 1st inning. Cubs couldn't cash that in. And then the Cubs didn't have another base runner until the 5th when Seiya Suzuki hit a 1-out triple and scored on a Heimer Candelario sac fly. When you talk about this, though, Nelson only allowed, when you look at it, he allowed 1 run on 2 hits and 2 walks. He struck out 3 batters over 5.2 innings. The Cubs scored a garbage run in the 9th when the Diamondbacks pretty much had this game in hand. They only had 2 runs on 5 hits. 3 of those hits came in the 9th when the D-backs just put in a mediocre pitcher. But for 8 innings, Dustin, the Cubs only had 2 hits. The Suzuki triple, which scored a run, and a Nico Horner double. I mean, 2 hits over 8 innings ain't going to do it.
No, not gonna get it done. Not at all. And last week we were talking about the offense and having 10 or more runs in 22 games and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden it looks like the offense got lost out on the road or something.
Who knows? But, the game 2, we, neither of us have had confidence in this. This was one where no chance, right? Zach Allen, who's a Cy Young candidate, I would say. And then you had struggling Jameson, Taillon. He walks the first batter he faced, Corbin Carroll, who absolutely just caused Cubs all sorts of problems. He steals 2nd and makes it to 3rd on a throwing error by Miguel Amaya. And all of a sudden you go, all right, here he goes again.
Exactly. It's exactly what it felt like, Crawly. Exactly what it felt like.
But then with the runner at third and no outs, J-Mo struck out the next 3 batters he faced, and he was just getting started. He pitched 6 innings and gave up no hits before Corbin Carroll singled in the 6th. He retired 17 batters in a row from the first inning until the 6th inning. There was controversy, Dustin, and I couldn't wait to talk to you about this. David Ross pulls Jameson Taillon at 77 pitches. Were you shocked by that, the way that he was cruising?
Well, he was cruising, but I almost felt like, boy, maybe Ross felt like we're getting away with one here, right? Like, let's not push it. This is better than we had all expected. So let's get out of here and see what we do next with the bullpen.
Yep, and Julian Merriweather came in, and he looked great. He struck out all 3 batters he faced. Jose Cuas came into the game in the 8th, gave up a single to Lourdes Gurriel. He walked Gabriel Moreno. He then struck out Jordan Lawler, and then Ross replaced Cuas with Mark Leiter. He strikes out the first batter he faced, but with 2 outs, Corbin Carroll singled, scoring Gurriel to make it 1-0. Originally, Dustin, the call on the field is that Suzuki caught the ball. The D-backs challenged it, and the call was reversed as New York said he trapped the ball. We're going to get to the stories in the second segment, but I had the kind of, like I said, I'll tell the story a little bit later, but I was sitting right behind Theo Epstein. This is a picture for those of you following the YouTube channel. That's myself and Theo Epstein. And as they were waiting for New York to make a call, I said, Theo, can you do me a favor, buddy, and call in a favor of New York? Because I mean, it was clearly trapped, but no luck on that one. The call was reversed.
Only clearly, it's interesting, Crawly, because I was listening to that play in particular. I had to pick up my daughter, so I was with Pat and Ron at that point, and then we got home and I rushed into the house. I had the DVR going, but I mean, when it happened at first blush, it looked like a catch.
Absolutely.
I mean, it depended on the angle you saw. I mean, the right call was made. But right. On television, the first time I did see it in full speed, I thought it was a catch.
Yeah, so they showed it on the Jumbotron. We were in the bleachers, and they showed it on the Jumbotron, and it's gigantic, and they were going slow-mo, so it was easier to see. But another interesting note on this game, Adbert Alzolay pitched for the first time in a week. He gave up no runs on 1 hit with 1K, but he hadn't pitched since he blew the game over Labor Day weekend against.
So I guess he's okay then.
I'm a little nervous still. But what made me more nervous was for the 3rd game in a row, Dustin, or for the 2nd game in a row, the offense was nowhere to be found. Gallion went 9.0 innings, gave up 3 hits. How many times do you ever see a complete hit shutout these days? It was Gallion's first career complete shutout. The Cubs only had 3 hits. 2 of those by one guy, Seiya Suzuki. Nico also had a hit and was hit by a pitch. The Cubs did not have an extra base hit or a man in scoring position. They were caught stealing twice, and Amaya had 2 throwing errors trying to steal out runners. Just a frustrating game.
Yeah, that one was, boy, you talk about one where you just want to flush it. And, Friday, you want to get the weekend off, good vibes going. That really put a little bit of a damper into it. So that brings us to game number 3, and we've got the lefty Justin Steele, the guy that we're thinking maybe can get a Cy Young for the Cubs for the first time in a long time. And it seemed like a game the Cubs really needed to win, went extra innings and didn't go their way.
Yeah, Steele, took on Merrill Kelly. Both pitchers delivered. Steele continues to make his Cy Young case. He went 7 innings. He gave up 1 run on 6 hits with 6 Ks, 0 walks. Dustin, he lowered his ERA to 2.49, the lowest in the major leagues. He has not suffered a loss in 10 straight starts since July 16th. I mean, just phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And again, the reason the Cubs lost on Saturday was not because of Justin Steele.
No, he gave up a run in the 5th when Corbin Carroll singled, stole second, moved to 3rd on a single by Emmanuel Rivera, and scored on a Gabriel Moreno weak grounder. So it wasn't like he got hit or tagged or anything. He looked as dominant as can be. And Kelly against this Cubs offense looked well. He went 5.2 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 run, 5 walks though, and 6 Ks. 5 walks, Dustin. That run that Kelly gave up shouldn't have even been charged to him. With 1 out in the 3rd, Nico singled on a soft bunt, and then Ian Happ with strikeouts. He got 2 outs. Cody Bellinger, he hits a pop fly between the second baseman and the shortstop. Each guy assumed the other guy was going to get it, and it fell harmlessly on the ground. But Nico never stopped running. He scored from first on a pop fly that landed on the infield dirt. It was
that's pretty amazing. I don't know that I don't know that I've ever seen that, Crawly.
I can't remember, but I just love the hustle that he has.
Yeah.
But Cubs offense had more hits in the previous game. They had 8 hits and they drew 5 walks. But Dustin, they could not get that timely hit we talked about, going 1 for 9 with runners in scoring.
1 for 9.
And they left 10 men on base. And now Albert Alzolay did pitch for a second day in the row. He got 2 quick outs, but walked Pavin Smith. He gave up a single to Corbin Carroll to put runners at the corners, and Carroll stole second to put runners at second and thirds with 2 outs. He walks Chase Peterson to load the bases before getting out of it. And then in the 9th, the Cubs had their chance to win. Yan Gomes hits a ball off the left field. It bounces right to Gurriel perfectly. A great tag, and Gomes was thrown out of second base by an eyelash. And what's going to make it worse, Dustin, the next batter, Nick Magical, doubled, and that would have easily walked off the game. Instead, Mike Tauchman grounds out. We go into extras, and this is where it gets ugly. Daniel Palencia comes on in the 10th. You got the free runner at second. Geraldo Perdomo bunted to move the runner to the third. Palencia hits the next batter to put runners at the corners. Then there's a pass ball by Yan Gomes to move Lawler to second. And then Palencia throws a wild pitch to give the D-backs a 2-1 lead. So there's a freebie for you. And then Tommy Pham would single to make it 3-1. There was also a fielding error in that inning by Cody Bellinger, but Arizona didn't score any more runs. But if you look at that inning, you hit a batter, you had a passed ball, you had a wild pitch, and you had an error. I mean, it was just a disaster.
Yeah, not a good one. Not a good one at all. Disaster is definitely a word for it.
Now, the Cubs had that extra runner at second. Nico grounds out. Then Lourdes Gurriel robbed Ian Happ of extra bases. And that would have easily been a double, and it would have made it a 3-2 game. Bellinger would single to make it that score, but then Dansby would pop out to end the games. And so the Cubs have lost the first 3 games.
Yeah, not where I thought they would be at the end of Saturday, that's for sure.
No, and especially when if you had told me you would have had an excellent start by Steele and a great start by Taillon, I would have easily thought we were 2-1 at this point. And so, it's up to Kyle Hendricks versus Joe Mantiply. In this one right here, Cub fans were finally pleasantly surprised. Dustin, it is September 10th. Mark this in your calendar. Ian Happ was finally moved out of the 3 spot in favor for the hot-hitting Seiya Suzuki. You know how excited I was about that.
Right, but it was only because of the pitching matchup, Crawly. That's what David Ross.
But they never took him out the entire time for any pitching matchup for anything. They never took him out.
No, I know.
I don't buy what David Ross is selling. And the move paid off, right? So the D-backs went with the opener strategy. Joe Mantiply, he started the game. He went 1.1 innings, giving up 1 run on 2 hits. The Cubs struck early. Christopher Morel hit a triple from the leadoff spot, but then made a dumb base running play.
Oh, was that dumb?
Trust me, we were not feeling good out in the bleachers. And then Morel was thrown out at home. Nico would steal second, but then Seiya would hit a ground rule double. The Cubs were up 1-0. Now, Brandon Pafad, if you remember, he was the one that they originally had starting the game. He came in the 3rd. First batter he faces, Christopher Morel, homers to make it 2-0. And then with 2 outs, Bellinger and Swanson went back to back to make it 4-0. I'm going to tell you an embarrassing story here, Dustin. I was that ball came right at me, and it missed my hand by this much. It probably would have broke my fingers. This right here, I don't know if you could for the YouTube channel. That's a dent in the bleachers right in front of my foot. So that was absolutely insane. I should have jumped a little bit further to catch it, but my reflexes were not the greatest at this time.
You didn't want to spill your beer, huh, Crawly?
No, sir. And so, the Cubs scored 1 more run in the 5th on a Nico single, a stolen base, and an RBI single by Dansby. But even though the Cubs scored 5 runs, only 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position. But Kyle Hendricks was his usual reliable self. He went 5.2 innings, 7 hits, gave up only 2 runs, 1 walk, 4 Ks, 6th win of the season. He only allowed 2 earned runs or fewer for the 5th time in his last 7 starts since August 9th. The bullpen was solid. Kwas pitched 0.1 inning, and Leiter, Wesniewski, and Merriweather all threw 1 inning of scoreless balls as the Cubs finally took a game. But, Dustin, we talked about this before. Sometimes the offense will go into stretches when they don't hit with runners in scoring position. They don't have a lot of pop. And that's when you kind of would see these losing streaks. And it would stink. And then we'd eventually, the Cubs would eventually hit their way out of it. But the Cubs are running out of games and trying to hold on to a wild card spot or win the division. They have got to find a way to score runs even when they are struggling.
Right. Not just home runs, right? You can't just live and die by the home run.
No.
Right.
The wind was blowing in a lot
hitting.
this weekend. Yep. The wind was blowing a lot this weekend. We're getting into fall, Dustin. That's going to change, and you're going to have to find a way to manufacture runs. You cannot screw up a Taillon brilliant start and another brilliant start by Steele. Just can't do that. You have to find a way to get these guys over and get these guys in.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2. It's episode 69. Cubs salvage one against the Snakes. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Crawly, you spent a long weekend at Wrigley Field celebrating the Cubs Hall of Fame weekend. Can you let us in a little bit, look behind the curtain, if you will?
Yes, sir. I did spend 4 days living the Cub lifestyle. And the weekend started on Thursday for me when my good friend Stu McVicker, he's been on the podcast. He celebrated his 50th birthday. And of course, he celebrated it in style with a party with Shawon Dunston there. So Shawon Dunston's at the party, and he was just such a great guy. I have a picture of Shawon looking at a 3-foot bobblehead of himself.
Nice.
We actually had the original Shawon-o-meter in the house. That is the original Shawon-o-meter, 0.278. But he just came down. He was a great guy. He really, his Q&A was very good. And I'm going to hopefully get that for you for the, when we get to the postseason. It was a longer one. It's about an hour long, but just a great guy, very introspective, very intelligent, very humble. But it was kind of sad because, we did the Q&A and I asked him, I said, look, you saw the love you got at CubsCon when they announced you were getting into the Hall of Fame, and you see all the love you get here. Do you see yourself spending more time in Chicago? And he said, it's time for other players to kind of do that. I've had my time. I enjoy my retirement. So, if you didn't go to this party, that was a shame, because I don't know the next time we're going to see Shawon Dunston in the Chicagoland area, maybe next year when they announce the next class of the Hall of Fame.
So that sounded like fun. So that was Thursday night, right?
Right. And then on Friday, the Cubs invited me to go to the pop-up museum. It's right in between the Cubs store and Brickhouse Tavern. There's a picture up here. They had balloons. I don't know how long they're doing it for, but they just had absolutely a ton of memorabilia. This photo I'm showing you right here is the Jake Arrieta's Game 6 World Series jersey. They had Pat Hughes' Ford Frick Award, Hall of Fame Award, Cy Young Awards, tons of stuff with Dunston and Grace on it. They had Jack Brickhouse's old binoculars. So they had the 1907 and 1908 World Series trophies. They weren't what you're thinking of. They're just like cups. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's that. If it's still going, I would recommend anybody going up there. But then a little birdie kind of told me a little news that there was going to be a special guest in the bleachers. And so he told me, he said, look for 3 guys that don't belong in the left center field bleachers. Okay. That's my little tip I get. I take a look and I see in the very first row, 3 guys dressed in khakis and polos with not any Cubs gear on it. So I say, okay, what's going on here?
Right, that's different now.
All right. So I sit next to him. I start talking to him. As the game is about to start and the anthem's going on, those 3 gentlemen were told to have a good day. Thank you for your help. And in walks Theo Epstein and 5 of his friends. So I am literally behind Theo Epstein. This is a picture that was shown on Marquee. And who else comes in but Chris Chelios? So you can see me right here. And then right in front of me is Chris Chelios. And looking at his phone was Theo Epstein. And if you see the picture, I kind of got side-eye trying to see if Theo, what he was doing. But it was absolutely hilarious. Theo, again, very nice guy, very, very friendly. We've known each other, CubsCon, and me asking him questions. And I didn't bother him until I took this picture in between the 8th inning, top and the bottom of the 8th. But he was very nice, and his friends were very nice.
Did everybody catch on that they were sitting there, or not really?
They put it on the Jumbotron, which I know he wasn't happy about, and Marquee kept showing them. So, yeah, everyone kind of knew he was out there. And so the only thing that bothers me, Dustin, is if I would have known he was there, I would have wanted to wore the Fly the W shirt because I got all sorts of TV time.
Nice.
And then And then it was fun. A buddy of ours, we were trying to figure out where we were going to sleep that night because our plans kind of fell through. Well, he won. Marty, the salsa king of Chicago, had won at a golf tournament a stay at a suite in the Hotel Zachary, which was a very beautiful room. This was a view of our room right here, just a real 5-star. And where we had a patio, and this was our view looking out at Wrigley Field at night.
Can't get better than that.
Yeah, with everything glowing. And then I don't know, I just had to take a picture of me in the robe and the slipper. So quite the adventure there. And then on Saturday, I did get to kind of hang out and talk to good friends, Bruce Miles, former beat writer for the Cubs, Daily Herald. And I talked to Jesse Rogers of ESPN, and they have a book that's out recently, Cubs, the franchise. And for those of you wondering what we do in the off season, we have a lot of guests, and they're going to come on to talk about their book. It's really interesting. And then as a season ticket holder, Dustin, I got to get a picture with Mark Grace, and there's that picture right there with Grace.
That's a great picture, yeah.
Got the Fly the W t-shirt on, so fun. And then we had the Harry Carey bobblehead. So
when was that to give away? Was that today?
That was Saturday.
Saturday.
So
okay.
that was complete. And then we spent the night having fun and drinks with Jody Davis, a good friend, a Club 400, good friend of ours, and just hoping that he gets into that Cubs Hall of Fame next. He really deserves it. So that takes us to Sunday, and all the luminaries, the Cubs legends are all right there. And if you're taking a look here, I was in the scrum, yours truly. There it is. There's Sean and there's Mark, and I got to listen to them answer questions, and the love that those two guys shared each other in the bond. Everyone knows, the Dunston to Sandberg to Grace. It was so cool just to kind of see how much they cared about each other. I took this picture from the field. This is the blazer, and they did have that T-shirt from Obvious Shirts, Dunston to Sandberg to Grace kind of on there. And then you just had the legends all kind of walking out, and this is from left to right. You have Dunston, Sandberg, Lee Smith, Fergie Jenkins, Andre Dawson, Pat Hughes, Randy Huntley, Billy Williams, and Mark Grace now. So those are all the living members of the Cubs Hall of Fame.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
They did take a picture of the three of them, which I enjoyed. That's a picture of Dunston, Sandberg, and Grace all wearing their new Cubby blue blazers. But I just think that the Cubs, we had Jen Martindale on the last show, and if you missed it, I encourage you to listen to it. They did it so different than what they did with Pat Hughes and Jose Cardinal. They really, truly celebrated their careers with the memorabilia, with videos, with each guy having their kind of own day to kind of hang out. Season ticket holders got a picture with Shawon Dunston on Friday or Mark Grace on Saturday. And so, and then seeing all the guys out there, I don't remember that last year when Pat and Jose Cardinal did it. I remember them throwing pitches, but I don't remember all the luminaries being out there. And not only that, there were some of their former teammates and their families there as well. So it was all really special.
Sounds like a great time was had by all. And fortunately, the Cubs were able to salvage one of those games against the Diamondbacks. This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season number 2. It's episode 69. Cubs salvage one against the Snakes. Don't forget to download our podcast, subscribe, and review it. Crawly, let's take a look at the standings after a big 4 games against the D-backs.
God, you were nervous after dropping 3 of 4, and the Yankees are playing the lowly Brewers. But again, now the Brewers are not as hot as they were. Now neither are the Cubs. They're both 5-5 in their last 10. So, the Cubs are only 3 games back of Milwaukee, which isn't bad considering they lost 3 of 4. Cincinnati is 6.5 games back. They're also 5-5. So the first 3 teams are all 5-5. Nobody's gained any ground on each other. So the Cubs 3 games back. Cincinnati is you're taking a look at 6.5 games back. And then when you talk about Pittsburgh and St. Louis, you have the magic number and the tragic number. The tragic number is when you're officially eliminated. Pittsburgh's tragic number is 7 games, and St. Louis's tragic number is 4 games before they are eliminated from the NL Central. But
the White Sox, Crawly, I think they hit their tragic number today. They were officially eliminated. So,
right. This is where things get crazy is when you get into the wild card right now. Philly's struggling right now. They're 4-6. The Cubs are only 2 games behind them. Arizona has now taken. Cubs are in second place. They're up 2 games on Arizona. And then Miami's back in at half a game. Cincinnati 1.5. And now San Fran, who you thought the Cubs put a dagger in, they're still there. But Megan Montemurro of the Chicago Tribune had an interesting tweet, and I want to kind of bring this up here. The Cubs did beat the Diamondbacks, right? So they did beat them, and they have to sweep them in Arizona to get to the tiebreaker if it ends up in a tie. There is no game 163 for anybody. It's based on season series. So right now the D-backs are up 3-1 in the season series, and then they have 3 more in Arizona. So they'd have to sweep to take the tiebreaker. Okay. For the Wild, the Cubs own the tiebreaker over the Giants, and the Phillies, the Marlins, and the Reds hold the tiebreakers over the Cubs. We don't know who holds the tiebreakers between the Cubs and Brewers, but this is how close we're getting here, Dustin.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the wire, and as much as it's painstakingly and the emotions are crazy, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, Crawly. The Cubs are playing meaningful baseball this late in the season.
Absolutely. And some good news on the roster front. Brad Boxberger, finally back on the big league roster. He hasn't pitched for the Cubs, Dustin, since May 13th with a forearm strain. Keegan Thompson, like I said, I don't blame Keegan. I mean, he gave up a bloop and a blast to guys that are very good hitters, but he was the one that drew the short stick. He's optioned back to AAA.
Yeah, no big surprise there.
No. Marcus Stroman continues to throw in Arizona. He's pitching to hitters in a batting practice workout on September 7th. He's got another one that he's pitching tomorrow, so we're going to keep an eye on that. And like I said, if you can get Marcus in any role, whether it's a starter or even out of the bullpen, that would be a huge help.
Wouldn't hurt, that's for sure. I think that's a really interesting question, though. I wonder if he would take a role coming out of the bullpen.
I mean, if his arm's not built up, I think he would know that it's best for the team, and I hope he would do that. So that remains to be seen. Nick Burdi continues to pitch in relief for Iowa. He's been throwing innings, so we'll see if Nick Burdi will make his way back up to the big team.
It would be nice to finally get to see him for more than just a tiny. I mean, would you even call what he did a cup of coffee with the team this year? It was more like a shot of espresso, if anything, right?
Right, maybe a sip of coffee.
All right, maybe a sip of coffee. All right, we got Cubs-Rockies starting on Monday, Crawly.
Yep, last season the Rockies finished in last the NL West, going 68-94. They didn't do much this offseason to make themselves any better. Their additions were kind of embarrassing. Pierce Johnson, relief pitcher who used to be with the Cubs, old Cubs farmhand. Jose Urania, they've already cut him, and Connor Siebold. They lost right-handed pitcher Carlos Estevez, outfielder Sam Hilliard, and outfielder Connor Joe. Connor Joe's still a really good player, but they made a lot of, they didn't do much in the offseason. At the trade deadline, they did they traded a lot of what they had as far as major league talent for a rebuild. So they didn't really get any guys that are going to help them this year. They traded Pierce Johnson, first baseman CJ Cron, and outfielder Randall Kritchuk. You remember him from the St. Louis Cardinals. The only addition they made was left-handed reliever named Justin Broyle. But the Rockies are currently dead last in the NL West at 51-90. Dustin, as long as the Cubs do their shot, they have a pretty good shot at a 100-loss season.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to be a Rockies fan. Weird, just a whole weird dynamic, and hopefully the Cubs can feast on them a little bit the next couple of days.
I know you'd like to hear this, Dustin. A little birdie has told me that one Chris Bryant may be making his return again during the Cubs series.
There we go.
So just kind of something to keep a little bit of an eye on.
Okay, let's get a little preview now, Crawly, of the Cubs' up next opponent. That's the Rockies.
Yep, and so we got some pitching probables for you. Jordan Wicks is now 3-0 with a 2.16 ERA. I think, again, the first NL starter or the first Cubs starter to win his first 3 victories since like the early 1900s. The first game was phenomenal against Pittsburgh. He did really good against Cincinnati. And then against San Fran, he went 6.2, gave up 9 hits, 2 earned runs. So, I mean, this kid is coming in and giving you at least 5 innings and not giving up more than a run or 2. I mean, you just that's what you're looking to do here with these guys is the Cubs, I can't believe are, if you would have told me that Taillon would have had a bad season, Smiley would have been awful, and that Marcus Stroman would be out the second half, there's no way I'm thinking that they're in a playoff hunt at all.
No, not at all. No, the young guys have been fantastic. It's saved their bacon, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and then hopefully, like I said, the offense can just help these young guys out. They're facing Kyle Freeland. Dustin, if the offense cannot feast on the pitchers that the Rockies are throwing up here, I don't know what to say. This guy's 6-14, 5.09 ERA. He started 27 games this season. Against Arizona, he did okay. Went 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs. Against Atlanta, that team is amazing. Went 5.2 innings, gave up 6 runs on 8 hits. And against Baltimore, another good team, he's pitched he went 6 innings, gave up 8 hits, 3 earned runs. So he's been pitching better as of late. But, if you want to go into the postseason, these are the guys that you have to beat.
Oh, you got to feast on this. This isn't even one of those like take 2 out of 3. We're going to get to the predictions in a couple of minutes. This is where you have to sweep somebody.
Right. Now, Javier Assad had a rough start, but if you really look at it, Dustin, if you look at the numbers, he gave up 2 home runs, but he went 5.1 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk. Again, if I would have told you that's what Javier Assad would give you, you'd say,
you take it every time. You take it every time.
It's just we got spoiled because his last start against Cincy, he went 8 and gave up 0 earned runs on 7 hits. And against Pittsburgh, he went 7 innings, gave up 3 hits and only 1 earned run. So he has just been so good lately. We've kind of come to really lean heavy on him, if you get what I'm saying.
I get it.
And then, taking a look at the next guy that they're facing, they are facing Chris Flexen. So again, you're not facing 1-7, 7.36 ERA. He started 12 games this season for the Rockies. Last game he went against Arizona, 2.1 innings, gave up 6 earned runs on 4 hits, 2 walks. Against Toronto, he went 5.2, gave up 4 runs on 7 hits. Did good against Baltimore, but he took the loss. 5.0 innings, gave up 2 earned runs, 4 hits. Not bad, but he's, again, when you take a look at, Zach Allen or something, that's going to be a hard game. None of these guys scare you. This guy was released by the Mets in July. Mets didn't want him, and so the Rockies just picked him up because they need to put bodies in there.
Right. They need somebody to throw the ball over the plate or attempt to throw the ball over the plate. Right.
Right. They traded everybody, and they didn't get anything back as far as major league talent. So, let's see what happens. But I don't know, Dustin. The third guy is starting, Jameson Taillon. Just like I said, that game.
I'm really looking forward to this one, right? Because now we're looking to see if he can actually put 2 decent ones together. That I don't think has happened yet this year.
But he had a good stretch where he had decent, 5 or 6 starts in a row, and it looked like it was going, and then all of a sudden, the wheels fell off again.
This would be a great time for 5 or 6 in a row.
It'd be great. It is Colorado, which has me a little nervous. He's 7-9 in that start. The last start here against Arizona, he went 6 innings, gave up 1 hit, 0 earned runs. Against Cincinnati, that was awful. 5.2 innings, 5 earned runs on 7 hits. But he did good against Milwaukee. He went 6 innings, gave up 8 hits, but only 1 earned run. The strikeouts have always been good. Last 3 games, 9 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts. He doesn't walk anybody. It's just the home run ball that you've talked about a bajillion times that keeps getting him in trouble.
Yeah. All right, Crawly, let's get into the hot and the not. And based on the fact that the Cubs scored very few runs over the last 4 games, I'm curious to hear who the hots are.
The hot is the one guy you should know is Seiya Suzuki, who has been nonstop.
He just continues. Hot. He was the player of August, and he's probably the player of September right now.
Right. He's 12 for his last 27 with 4 doubles, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, slashing 444, 464, 889. Dansby's starting to slowly snap out of it. He's got 9 hits in his last 26 at bats with a double, a home run, 5 RBIs. He's slashing 346, 414, and 500.
That's pretty hot.
On the knots, Heimer Candelario has been struggling, 1 for his last 15. He came out of today's game with a back issue. So they put Talkman in, and they moved Bellinger to first because Candelario started at first. But he's been struggling, and I don't know if that back thing is new, if it just happened today, or if it's something that's been bugging him. I have no idea, but he's been very cold, slashing .067, 250, 133. And I don't know, maybe the summer of Mike Talkman's over. It's the fall of Mike Talkman, and it's not as good. He's really struggling. He's 1 for his last 16. .063, 286, 125. He has no home runs, no RBIs, 1 double. I mean, he gets on base by walk, but just nothing. So
yeah, nothing after that. Yep.
And I'm still waiting to see Alexander Canario get another at bat. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be a good space to put him in a game
in Colorado.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. All right, Crawly, let's not spend a whole lot of time. So Chris Bryant, we might see the return of Chris Bryant versus the Cubs, huh?
That's what I'm hearing. Watch out for Elias Diaz. He's doing pretty well. 5 for his last 16. He has a home run and 4 RBIs. And then after that, it really starts to get Nolan Jones. I mean, most of this team, you probably haven't even heard of. Charlie Blackmon's back with them, and Ryan McMahon.
Charlie Blackmon!
He's always done good against the Cubs. He's got 2 hits for his last 13. but his best day, he's slashing 154, 294, 154. There's not a lot of guys on here should scare you. So that's why, you got to, like you said, you got to feast here.
Yeah, this is the time to put the old foot on the throat of your opponent. All right, Crawly, let's get into the predictions.
Boy, oh boy. I mean, I just got to say the Cubs have got to take 3. I mean, they got to sweep.
They got to sweep. Are they going to sweep?
I think they're going to sweep. I think Assad is going to have a good start. I feel it's good. I think Jordan Wicks is going to have a good start. The guys they're throwing have nothing. I mean, like, what are you really scared of? And then, like you said, Taillon's the one that I want to watch. He's facing Ty Black, which, okay, not scared of that guy either. So, I mean, I would say that I believe that they will sweep. I think their offense is going to come out of their doldrums. Here's what I'll say. I'll go 2 for 3, but if Alexander Canario starts the game, I'm going full sweep.
All right, I'm going to go with you on this. I'm going full sweep as well. They need to do it. They're going to do it. I have a feeling they're going to make us all forget, at least for a couple of days, how bad the Bears played on Sunday, and we'll have the Cubs to look forward to during the course of the week. Crawly, have a great start to your week, and we will get back together Wednesday or Thursday to recap this one, all right?
Yep, and I want to thank all the Cub fans that stopped by and said hello and how much they enjoyed the podcast. Just to let you know, Dustin, I put my payment in for postseason tickets. So I want the Cubs to keep winning so I could use those things. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!